somebody comes to me and they're like, "How can I help you?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know how to help myself right now. And you want me to tell you how to help me? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what to make for dinner right now. I don't even know how to start the laundry. Like, no, just
Yeah.
offer support or yes, be present. Just
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah, 100%. And the reality of it is too, is that I will tell you, and maybe you're like this too, but my wife and I are the absolute worst at asking for help.
Yes,
We
I'm
are
really
the
bad.
absolute worst. We're that couple that we're always helping everybody else. And we never had that alone time or really, kind of positive when marriage life until years and years in, because we had people living with us and we were just kind of transitioning homes and all this other stuff. And so then it comes time for where we really do need help, but no, we don't know exactly what we need because we don't understand exactly what we're facing here.
Yeah.
you know what do you need? I don't know. I need you to make me dinner next Tuesday and so I can take a break. We have no idea. And it's hard because asking for help can often feel like it's a sign of weakness, and it's not. It's a sign of strength because you know where your focus needs to be, and it's okay to let people help you. But yeah, we don't know what we need, and you could be years into this and still not understand what you need. You just need people to say, "Hey, listen, I want to go do this for you. I want to do this for you. Can I bring, like I said, can I bring groceries over to you today? Can I drop off a casserole? Because, we all love to get casseroles. Can I drop one off? That's what we need from people is
Yeah.
offer it and give it. And also don't expect things in return. I think, yes, we're going to say thank you and we're going to appreciate it, but please don't expect, we had this, I think within our own family, please don't expect a card in the mail that says thank you for helping us or whatever. Just know that we appreciate it because what you do and what you help with and what you're there for should just be out of the kindness of your heart and not out of what you can get from it.
Yeah. I had to really learn how to say yes to
Hmm.
people when they offered the support too, because I'm like you. Me and my husband both, we don't ask for help for anything. My husband is a very prideful guy. He's kind of like he's always worked for his own, done his thing. He does not want a leg up from anybody. It's just something he's always taken great pride in. That everything he's ever had, he has earned all on his own merit, and he's very, very hard worker. And so when things started to happen, I remember telling myself, like when my husband was in surgery, I was like, Blair, you just need to say yes to people. Because he did have coworkers reach out and say, like, we want to drop off, we want to put together a food train. Is that okay? And I was like, I just need to say yes, because my normal instinct was to say, no, 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 don't bother. No, don't worry. No, we're okay, and just not accept help because yeah, it felt like weakness, or I felt like I was taking advantage of people, or and my husband, he gets weird about it too. We actually do have some really wonderful neighbors. The little street that we live on, all the houses on that street now know what's going on, and so they've dropped off meals and stuff, and he's always like, oh, they need to stop doing this, I feel really bad. And I'm like, no, like they genuinely too have told me that it makes them happy to feel like they're being able to do something for us because they don't know how else to help. So if it's cooking us a casserole, that's making them feel good too. So I've just learned to just say yes to everyone who says
Yeah.
they want to help.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you have to kind of just allow yourself that vulnerability. We have the same thing here. Our neighbors, when we were going through all this, I sure as hell was not going outside and worrying about the grass and all that stuff. And that's what he did for us. He cut the grass, and he's like, we just don't know what else to offer, but we know we can do this. And I said, it helps more than you know, because that's something that I don't have to worry about. We don't have to go out and do it. And it meant a lot, and it didn't cost. I mean, obviously the gas and the mower, but it didn't cost them anything, and it made them feel good because they felt like they were helping and they were doing something great, and they were. So it doesn't have to be extravagant. Like if people want to help, it doesn't have to be extravagant. Just, it's little things, and people in their nature, people want to help. But as much as we don't know what they want or what we want, they don't know what we need. It's, you just have to decide and say, I'm going to do this, and we do that. We still are like that. We're in a different position with all of this now, but we still are in a position where we're a family that is forever broken through this. And we still do need help, but we still find ourselves saying, no, we're okay. Don't worry about us, because you always think there's somebody else that could use it more.
Mhm.
And which is, it may be true, because you never know what somebody else is going through. But, the other thing too is that if you keep saying no, people will just stop offering. And then when you really need it, there's nobody there to offer. So it's okay to say yes. It's okay to, just accept that help. Don't feel bad about it because people want to. So that's a whole nother topic, is saying yes to people. I think you could just go on forever because people are forever not wanting to say yes or feel like a charity case. I mean, I guess that's the worst thing, you feel like that, but you're not, you're a human
Yeah.
being in a family and you're going through something tough.
Well, that's what my husband, he says that's probably been can be some of the hardest parts for him is, once he did return back to work, because he was on short-term disability for about 3 months. And then when he went back to work, he was going in like little small increments. But for him, it was really, again, he needed to go back to work. It was what he needed to deal with his diagnosis and to deal with treatment and to keep him busy. He's a very busy guy. It just makes him feel like he's doing something with his day. So when he got back to work, he's just like, everybody treats me like I'm a charity case. Like everybody looks at me like I'm the Walking Dead man. Like everybody, he's like, the tone that people give me. He's like, I know exactly what they mean when they walk up and say, how are you today? Like, it's just the tone changes, how everybody looks at him. He's like, people that I thought hated me. He's a manager. He's a production manager for Boeing. And he's like, I mean, they're real nice to me now. He's like, they weren't maybe so nice. I wasn't their favorite boss, but now they all love me. He's like, I don't know, maybe that's the silver lining. Like he's also kind of he's my dark humor kind of funny guy. He's trying to
Yeah, unfortunately, again, that's one of those other kind of detrimental side effects. I guess you have to look at it, is that I don't want to say contagious, but you kind of get treated that way. It's like,
yeah.
what's going to happen? And when for me, if anybody asks me about our daughter, then I'll talk about her until I'm blue in the face. And you'll always say that I have 3 kids. It'll never be different than that. My wife, she will kind of tailor it to who asks her, because people will give her that, oh, how are you doing? And oh, I'm so sorry. No, please don't say how sorry you are just because I want to talk about it. I don't want to be treated like there's something wrong with us. You know what I mean? And again, but you know what? Listen, if the people at work are treating you better, I say roll with it. It's just roll with it.
I know he makes little jokes now and they're like, oh, and he's got a couple guy buddies, right, that kind of dish it back. So now they're like, oh, so you think you can be late for a meeting because, you're on treatment right now. So I mean, he tries, and some people, he'll say things and they just look like, how could you say that? That's so horrible. And he's like, whatever, it's my brain cancer. I can say whatever I want.
Listen, you know what? I think that's phenomenal. I was going to ask how his personality, if it had changed through all this, but it seems like it's just, I mean, you don't want to be defined by this, but at the same time, this is your life and you're going through it, and how you decide to handle it, everybody is different. For some people, it's comedy, right? And you just have to make the best of what it is. I mean, we're all on this earth for a little while, and the time you make is what's so important. And so, I mean, you can elaborate more if anything has really changed, but I mean, to me, that I love the fact that he can just go with it and roll with it, because what else are you going to do? I mean, has it changed really anything?
Yes and no. I mean, so my husband does realize that humor can be a little bit of deflection, right? He has said, he's like, I mean, if I don't laugh, I'm gonna cry. So, and he cried more than I don't think I'd ever seen the man cry in the 15 years that we have been together. And in that first month to 2 months, I mean, he was crying every day, and he was really struggling, as obviously one would. And he's still has his moments. We were just actually talking about it this weekend, that he recognizes that there is a lot of things that he is just not fully absorbing. He's not allowing himself to really process. And he does deflect a lot with the humor and trying to just try to be himself as much as he can. Some of it is just how he is naturally, but some of it is he also doesn't want anybody to worry. He can hear it in his mom's voice when she calls, or his family, or he doesn't want me to worry. But I have to keep reminding him he needs to not stay strong for everyone else. Like, it's happening to him. As much as I can understand certain things of what we're going through as a couple, I can't understand what he's going through being the patient and being the warrior, being this is, happening all to him. And I don't expect him to be able to have a conversation and for me to be able to even give him what he needs. I think that's the hardest part actually within the subgroup for his cancer, is that it's for brain cancer specifically, it's a very small group that are within the age range that he's in. Brain cancer is usually, a pediatric cancer, or you're looking at usually 50, 55 plus. Community is usually is who's getting hit with brain cancers. So they deem him as like young adult, and it's a very small group even within that group. And so he doesn't really have anybody to talk to. He doesn't have anybody who gets what he's going through at all, being a father, being still working and dealing with all of those things. So that does, it impacts his mood and the things that are going on with him. Obviously, it causes concern as his caretaker, because I'm now very hyper aware and focused into any little subtle shift of anything. Because with brain cancer, you're paying attention to changes in mood and changes to personality, anger. Anything could be an indication of growth and regret or progression, because it can affect them personally and their behavior. So I'm always like, is this a warning sign, or is this, something else that's going on, just a normal part of the process of trying to deal with being, terminal. His short-term memory is definitely worse. So that creates a little friction. Obviously, especially with what he has is called aphasia. Everything that he has in terms of deficits is related to the temporal lobe. So temporal lobe houses like memory and communication. And so those are the things that are greatly impacted for him. So with aphasia, it's not just about like how he communicates or reading. Like reading can be very difficult for him. He's still, some days are better than others with his reading, but like understanding and processing words that I'm saying to him. So literally it's like he jokes now that he really is the husband who, my wife can say anything and I'm not listening to her. And he's like, for years, he was like, I felt like I was listening, but then it's just gone. And it's because auditory wise, he's not processing fully what other people are saying to him. And so it doesn't stick on top of the short-term memory. So it's just gone. And so that can create frustration at times for himself and obviously communicating. But in terms of like big personality changes, it goes in waves. Sometimes I will definitely see that he doesn't seem like himself. And I don't even know how to really fully describe it other than there's just definitely a difference in his behavior. And I can't even put words to it. It's just there's a difference there. I think I'm sure with your wife or your children, you know them so well, like you just pick up on those subtle little shifts of their energy very easily. And so there's just little things that I notice.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I can't hide anything, because and my kids get it from me. They wear their feelings, they wear their heart on their sleeve. So everything, it's out there. If I'm not having a good day or if I don't feel good, I try to just burn through the day and don't say anything about it. And mainly it's because I don't want anybody else to have to worry about me. I don't want anybody to have to focus on that. But yeah, my wife can catch that a mile away. So I know that that's there. There's nothing I can do to hide it. Now, I wanted to ask, and again, it's personal, but you can elaborate if you want. Do you feel like being a caretaker at this point, because of, you're kind of going through this with him and helping him, does that affect your ability to be just his wife? Does that get in the way at all? Does that ever kind of clash, those two things?
Yeah. And I think that's actually a really good question. And I mean, I want to say that I don't feel it currently that it is in our relationship. I think that I can still just, I'm trying to, how do I put this into words? I honestly actually feel like it's allowed me to be better of a wife in a lot of regards, because I really am like really listening to him and what he's wanting and his needs to be met, and not trying to come in and tell him what I think he should do. I think old Blair in our marriage would want to come in when I would see something. I'm like, you're not taking better care of yourself. You need to this, you need to that, you need to, I think most wives can at times mommy our husbands the way we mommy our kids. We are all guilty of doing it. It happens. And I know that husbands don't really like that behavior sometimes. They're like, I already have a mom. I don't need another mom, right? Or I don't want to be treated like one of the kids, right? I'm your husband. So I think it's actually shifted it in that regards, because I want him to be able to choose how he is going to spend his years and how he is going to do his treatment and how he is going to do the things, and it not be about me coming in and trying to like be a mom in the situation. So I think in that regards, it's actually improved those things. I think it has at times improved some of our communication because it has forced us to have some really big heart-to-heart conversations that most couples maybe never have with each other, or they maybe don't even have until later in life when they're facing certain things. I think there are times, my caretaker role, I'm sure my husband would probably have a different opinion. He'd be like, no, you're, any little tiny symptom, you're quick to call the care team. I mean, I called them probably about an hour before we got on to record this because there were things that popped up over the weekend, but I'm the one who errs on the side of caution. At this point, he's still not so much. So I think he allows me to do that without me over buffering like on him. And like, I will just call the care team and we're trying to, I'm sure as things progress, I do think that is going to many wives that I have talked to that have had to go through this with their husbands, or husbands dealing with this with their wives. There is going to be a shift where my role is really going to be more a caretaker really than a wife. And I think that's the kind of thing that actually keeps me awake at night and creates a lot of anxiety. And I have a lot of nightmares about it because the unknown of what that's going to look like to have to do that for my husband. And I don't want that for him either, to have to go through a lot of these things. So I'm sure it will shift. We're still fairly early in this journey, really, when you think about it.
Right. No, I think you explained it really well, and I think it makes a lot of sense too. I think, yes, as husbands, our wives are often the ones that are there to tell us, to take care of yourself better, and you need to do this. And yes, it can often feel, I'll just say it, whatever. It can often feel like nagging, right? Or that kind of thing. And no, we don't want to be treated like the kids, but at the end of the day, as much as I know I fight it, and I'm sure most other husbands would agree with me, I think we feel comfort in the fact that you're there and that you're doing this for us and worried about our health and our well-being. And I'm sure even if he doesn't say it, which then I'm sure he appreciates the fact that what you're doing for him to be there, because if nothing else then you're there with him through this and he's not doing it alone. So if nothing else, it's at that level. But I think that, to face it on any plane like this, I think that to have somebody there with you that can be there, that can speak the words that you can't speak, or that can see the things that you can't see, is so beneficial. So I'm glad that it kind of comes together as one thing and doesn't kind of take over. And I'm sure, it will shift at some point, but at the same time, you're always going to be his wife no matter what. So that caretaker just takes on a bigger role.
Yeah. Yeah, he jokes around now. He's like, you're like my caretaker / PR rep, marketing,
You were.
There was a period of time where, especially with his aphasia in the very beginning and right after brain surgery, he couldn't really be on his phone anyways, because it was really hard for him, like TV screens. It was, I always, for people that didn't understand it, I was like, picture like a concussion protocol, like on steroids. Like they really can't be exposed to a lot of things typically after their brain surgery. It can create a lot of, flare-ups and symptoms, and it wasn't making him feel good. So I was on his phone responding to everything, and it's not like he could read a text message anyways. Weirdly enough, though, my husband, and this is the interesting thing about the brain, is that he couldn't read a text message, but if I read it to him, he can type out what he would want to say, and it would make perfect sense. But he could not read back what he just wrote. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's strange. And that's so, and you'll have to explain it just a little bit. So what he looks at, so if we type out a sentence on, let's just say we just type it out on our phone screen, then what does he see? or what does it look like to him?
So he knows the words. Like he's looking at it, he recognizes the letters, he can recognize the words, and he can make the sounds of all of the letters. And certain words he knows, like usually the most common ones, right? Like they and, those like short ones, he can pick those up. But everything else, like he was having to sound out all of the words to say them. And he also notices like he can read it better usually in his head than if he's reading it aloud. Having to read it aloud was really a struggle. Simple sentences, so like really short text messages, those would typically kind of stick, but anything longer than like 2 sentences, and he was like, this is becoming overwhelming, I don't know what this says. So right now, even at work with his emails, he just puts his headphones in and he has it, where it reads the emails to him. And thankfully, like I said, he can hear it and then he can type it all back out and it totally makes sense. But then there's times where he's like, I don't even know what I just wrote.
It's so strange. The brain is so complex, just the way that things work and trying to understand it all, things like that. Does it have something to do with, and maybe this is just stupid, but does it have something to do with the optic nerve and the connection between that to what he's seeing to get to the brain to come back out? Or is it just that temporal lobe area? It just jumbles everything.
Yeah, it's just more the temporal lobe because that's how it works with like how we communicate and how we process information that we're receiving. A lot of it being like auditory, but also like what we're reading words. So yeah, when in the very beginning, before we had left the hospital, right, he had all these people come in and do different testings to kind of figure out what were the deficits he was having. Was there anything residual after they had removed the tumor and what kind of support that he may need, right? So you're having everybody come in, the PT people, OT, all the stuff. Well, the speech therapist came in and did this huge testing on him. And I just remember his poor little face. He just looked so heartbroken. He was like, I feel so stupid right now, because he knew like they were asking him things and he was like, I don't know, like just basic stuff. And it was really freaking him out at first. But she gave some homework for him to because word finding can be really hard too with the temporal lobe, is that he knows what he wants to say and it's like in his head, but he can't seem to get it out and say the word that he's looking for. So with reading or even talking, there were times where we were joking, it was almost turning into charades because he has to try to describe things. And as he's describing it, it's actually allowing his brain to make new neural pathways to get from the information that is in his brain, but finding another way to actually access it. So him knowing the word or the object or whatever it is, him describing it. So it would be like, if he's trying to think of like an orange, like a fruit, he would have to be like, it's a fruit. It has a rind, you grow it on a tree. Like it's this, and he was like literally trying to give, and we're like, I don't know what you're saying. And then all of a sudden it would trigger in his brain because he would have to speak it out a certain way. So it's been very interesting too and challenging for him at times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I can see also just the frustration that it would bring to not be able to, because I think we've all been in a position, right, where you know what you want to say and you just can't find the words to say what you want to say. But this is like to the extreme, like what you want and it just will not come out of your mouth. And I could only imagine the frustration with or the feeling of I'm stupid. I can't figure that. I can't say what I want to say when it couldn't be further from the truth. It's just, this is the way things are. It's, I don't know. It's hard to describe, to see. It's hard to watch that type of thing. And, we saw things like that with our daughter when it started to progress and look at you in the eyes, like the lights were on, but nobody was home. Mm-hmm. And not be able to say what she wanted to say, and the words would come out very, very slow and very. It was just to watch that happen and watch that progress at that moment, and that was a super quick progression. And it's scary, and you're scared on the outside, right? And imagining what they feel on the inside, like that they're almost trapped inside this body that is not working the way it's supposed to, and trying to figure out how to communicate what's going on to the outside world.
Yeah, it was really difficult. On our wedding anniversary, we celebrated 12 years together and we had gone to Tombstone. It was like right after we gotten the diagnosis, and we had met literally with his radiation oncology the morning of our anniversary. And we left, and I took him to Tombstone, because that's another thing. My husband loves Westerns. He was like, if he could be like John Wayne, he loves all those old movies. He's like, that's what he wants to do. So I was like, I'm going to take you to go live like an actual cowboy for like a couple days. Let's go to Tombstone. And he loves that movie, Tombstone. So we get down there, and that's when I really saw that independence just stripped from him. Every single place we would go into, the fonts of different things, to just order a coffee for himself, and he'd be standing there just like, I have no clue what any of that says, like the handwritten, when they'd have them on the chalkboards, especially. I mean, that was just such a struggle. He just wants to order breakfast for himself, and he would just be like, can you look at the menu? I can't. And it's just to see that defeat on his face of just like, he can't even read for himself. That was really heartbreaking. So we actually just had a nice we had gone out for a date night over the weekend, and he was able to read his own menu. And I was like, you did it. It was like such a great moment. Oh my God, you got to read your whole menu and you didn't ask for help once. That's amazing.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I don't know. It's so weird to really just kind of think about how little things in life that we take for granted every single day can be so difficult and be taken away that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited. I saw the video, so I'm excited about the fact that happened. I've said in the past that every victory, no matter how big, is huge. It's a massive victory. It doesn't matter how small it is. That's huge. And that's solid. That's a solid progressive thing in the correct direction. And listen, this diagnosis is scary. And, like I said, we dealt with it, with our daughter, and I've never had to deal with something like this with my wife, and I don't know how I would handle it. So, but I think to be honest with you, I think you guys are doing great. I think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and we're all put here for a reason. We don't know what it is, and we sure as hell don't think this is what it's going to be. But in the reality, you're using your voice to make a positive change, a positive difference for generations lasting going forward. And that's the biggest thing here is you have to find that silver lining in every single thing that you do, no matter how bad it is. You've got to find a good thing there. Ours has always been the amazing people that we've been able to meet that we never would have met otherwise, that unfortunately we're all dealing with something that's horrible, but we're now amongst people that we can trust and lean on and be there for. I wanted to cover one thing that I think you've spoken about, and something that we have dealt with, or we did deal with, and I never really talked about it out in the open, but it's anticipatory grief.
Mm.
And it's kind of, and we just, we had a friend really close to us who lost his wife a few months ago to colorectal cancer. And he is just the beaming light of celebrate everything that they had together, celebrate her life, celebrate how amazing she was. You can be sad, but you can still be happy for what you were given, what you went through. And it was that anticipatory thing, and to shake his hand and smile on the day of her funeral, and he's making jokes with us. Well, we're kind of like, wait a minute here, this isn't the way it's supposed to go. And I'm not trying to put that out there in the ether that's what's coming, but it's like that that knowing what's coming helps you, or what could come, it helps you prepare. And this sounds terrible to talk about. It really, and every time I open my mouth, it comes out, it sounds even worse. But when you can prepare for something like this, or have an idea of what maybe the future looks like, I don't even know, just explain your side of anticipatory grief, because I'm just going to keep talking myself into a hole here.
No, I think what you did say, I do want to speak on that, because what you did say, I actually do hear from a lot of widows that I have spoke to that are going through a similar journey as mine, that they knew that this was coming, and maybe it wasn't like, because you have different layers of anticipatory grief, right? And again, this was something I didn't even really fully understand until I was in it, right? Anticipatory grief really could be anywhere from, you have a couple weeks, days, to months, or in our case, we're, years, or hoping for years, right? And so that can look very differently for everybody, depending on the length of time that they're having to be able to be sitting with that grief and that knowing of losing a loved one. And when it comes to widows, I'd heard that actually a lot, that widows that had had maybe years of time to be going through their anticipatory grief, that when the loss actually did come, that people actually judged them for how they were responding at either their funerals, wakes, or the weeks after their loved one had passed, because they were like, well, you're not grieving in the way that we think you should be grieving. I have no idea what it's going to look like for me when that actually happens and how I'm going to be processing it at that time. But I am prepared that if that does occur, at least I know, like, okay, if people say those things or people are, they're way more emotionally distraught, there's not anything wrong with me. It's just because I've had X amount of years to be going through this, unlike everyone else. Even though, yes, like our family and friends, they all know what's going on and they're still upset, they're still not living it every single day in and day out. And I'm sure you can understand that, right? As a parent, other people can, they're maybe, saying they're sorry, or they have feelings about it and they're feeling grief and they're feeling emotional, but it's never the same when it's the people living under the roof of that home. Everybody under the roof of that home are experiencing it in a completely different way, because you're living it every single day. You're in it. There is no escaping it. Other people can escape it and go do other things and live their life. The people in the household cannot. So yeah, I mean, there was something I was going to say to that, and then that's totally just exited my brain. I think too, it's people, because maybe they've abandoned or they've kind of checked out. They don't see the level of the grief that we're moving through in this in real time. And then, also for a lot of the brain cancer community, by the time we're reaching the end, for many of us, and this is hard to say, and I feel like this sounds really horrible for somebody who doesn't know what this is like, but I think you don't get it unless you're in it. Seeing someone you love suffer that way, and to have certain things stripped from them, and then you want comfort for them, is a lot of what I've heard from widows, is that you're ready for them to have comfort by that point, because you've maybe seen them really, really having the worst days that nobody should ever have to see. And it can be very traumatic for everyone in the family, especially for the caretaker and the spouse. So, these are all things that obviously with my anticipatory grief that I'm moving through, it's, I've never experienced grief like this. So I have literally nothing to compare it to. I haven't really lost anyone in my family or someone very close to me. This is the very first time I'm experiencing anything like this. But what I know of grief, and being in like the line of work that I was in before, I was dealing with trauma and dealing with people that had lost loved ones. Grief, it comes in waves. You never know when it's going to hit. And that's the same to be true with anticipatory grief. There's days that I think I'm doing awesome. And then, an hour later, I can be curled up in my closet, crying my eyes out, holding all my husband's clothes, because, that right now is I always refer to the closet. That seems to be the space that I go to, because it feels the most like him in there. It's all his personal effects, right? So I like to just be in there with him. But every day it's a challenge.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And, I think for us, and you're going through, the idea at the very of, you've seen them suffer, you've seen them go through this, you've seen all the bad things that you haven't really shared with other people, or maybe the images or the pictures that people haven't seen. We see that. And when we know what's coming, or when, somebody passes, yeah, you look at it and say, but you're not sad enough, or you're not grieving the right way, but you also didn't get to see what we had to see. You didn't get to see what they went through. And it's, we truly have lost friends because we did not grieve correctly. We did not cry enough, or we did not just fall so deep into our grief that we, couldn't get up and move and do whatever. And listen, everybody grieves differently. There is, just much like there's not a handbook for this, there's no handbook that tells you how you're supposed to grieve. And what people see on the outside is such a small snippet of what we actually want you to see. And I will tell you now, it breaks me every single day. This world, this community, it breaks my heart. And every time I see another kid going to the hospital or having a relapse or going through something, it drives me crazy, because I'm like, why? Why are we still dealing with this? And that grief that I feel now for us, I feel for others. And it's because we know what you're seeing. We know what those images are. We know how things progress. We know the suffering that happens, and it can be small, it can be huge, it can be major, it can be something as simple in our terms as watching somebody not be able to read something or not be able to understand something that was normal a week prior, something that was normal a year prior that you never thought was going to come up, and we take it for granted. On the outside, we take it for granted, and we see that. The anticipatory side of that, I think personally for me, I don't think the right word when our daughter passed, I didn't feel relief. I don't think that's the right word that I've ever been able to attach to it. I feel comfort. I'm at peace with the fact that she's no longer having to deal with the day in and day out of a horrible quality of life with what she was dealing with. I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with knowing that she's here with me all the time. I'm at peace at knowing that she's guiding me in what I'm doing. We anticipated what was going to happen. And, so yes, it was a huge blow. Of course it was. And anybody that loses somebody, it will be a huge blow to you. But, if you have, I almost want to say it's a luxury to be able to prepare for what's going on and be able to put your affairs in order. It's such a stupid thing to say, but that to get everything kind of lined up in your life and be able to just know what's going on, it's to me, it takes stress away because you're not worried so much about it because listen, if you don't do anything and if you don't try, with brain cancer, there's the prognosis on any of it is not great. If you don't try to do anything, there's 100% chance of knowing exactly what's going to happen. If you are given 5% chance of survival to 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you're going to put 100% of your effort into that 5% chance every time, no matter what. If it doesn't work, you tried, and you're going to put all of your effort into that. So I think how you choose to grieve, how you choose to have good days, bad days, how you choose to handle things that happen in life and the unfortunate passing of our loved ones to this disease, how you choose to handle that, nobody can tell you what's right and wrong. People are going to, 100%. People are, don't you dare smile. You know what I mean? And I asked that question. I asked my wife the day after our daughter passed. I said, are we allowed to smile? Are we okay? Like, are we supposed to be happy, to laugh? You are. Because you know what? For us, we had 8 amazing years and we managed to, take all of that in and spread it amongst a lifetime. And you take all the time you have and you take all those memories and you look at all the positives. You look at the positives. I don't want to give Facebook a shout out, but memories are a great thing sometimes when they show you stuff you forgot that you did, and they can be a great reminder of things the way that they were. So with it being brain cancer, what I can offer is awareness. What I can offer is prayers, is hope, all of that. But I can be there as much as I can for anybody else that needs it because I understand it. I don't want to understand it. I wish I didn't understand it, but I do. With that being said, for somebody that understands it, I'm always here and I'm always available. And if there's ever an outlet that is needed, even if it's just to sit there and listen to ranting, I'm putting myself out there for yourself, for your husband at any point in time, because I do get it. And 99% of people that say, I understand, they don't. And again, we don't want you to, but we just want you to listen. If I can ever be of any kind of help, honest to God, even if it's just sitting there and listening, I would love to be able to do that if it's something that would ever help in any way.
I so appreciate that. Like, I really do. And I hope that goes both ways. And I hope for anybody who's, who is ever listening to this, I think I always try to let people know, like, my door is always open. I want to create a space for community, for people to be able to have people to talk to and share their own experiences, or just have people listen that do understand it in a way that no one else ever can. Like, sometimes you just need somebody to listen. And I mean, I'm a very good listener. I got paid for a lot of years to listen for people and just hold space and listen. And so it's definitely something that I really truly want to do and help other people in that. And so, yeah, I do thank you in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And experience is a huge thing when it comes to being able to put yourself out there. One thing that I've noticed a lot of the kids that go through this, and even the parents, will turn to nursing, will turn to child life, will turn to medical fields and put their experiences into that. And the medical professionals that they will become will be so much more adapt to these things because you experienced it personally. You know how to talk to people, bedside manner. It's just amazing. So anytime you can use the experiences you've gone through to be able to help other people, I think it truly is the best therapy. I really do. This is mine, to be able to speak to people, to be able to, whatever I can do, that's my therapy. That's always been my therapy. I never paid a therapist, so this is mine. This is what I've been told to do it, but this is mine. And I'm going to continue to do it until I don't know when, but that's the case there. Is there anything that I didn't cover that maybe you wanted to talk about?
I think you really hit on everything. Pretty much.
So what I will then do is at the end of every episode, I always ask my guests to give advice to the listeners. So as it's always been, as a mother, as a father, whatever, or, in this case, as a wife, as a mother, as somebody that's going through this, what advice can you give to maybe another family that is right now getting that same diagnosis and feeling like they're on an island?
That is a big question.
I know.
Because I'm I really want to give a good answer. Because I really want people to get support. I know that not everybody is going to, process and handle things the way that I do. I think that for me, I recognize this is a coping skill for me. I am coping and trying to control this situation that feels very out of control by sharing my story and putting things out there in the hopes that it's going to raise the awareness. It's going to create the connections that I'm currently having, being on a podcast like this and speaking with you and your audience. And, I've been doing other interviews and things like that and trying to, make those connections to actually make change happen, because that is how change actually occurs, right? Everybody says they want change, but not everybody's willing to do the work behind the scenes that it takes to make the change happen, right? And so I just hope and pray that that is what I can do. But I get it. Not everybody, that is not for them. And that doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong if they're not charging the way for their loved one, by shouting at the rooftops to, support this foundation or do this or do that, right? Everything is kind of what makes them feel comfortable. And so I think that is the thing that I can give the best advice in, is just do what feels right for you and for your family, and try to, lean into the support of the groups that are out there. There is a lot of really great networks and communities out there to support spouses, parents, children, siblings. I mean, every aspect. I think trying to find other people that are going through your lived experience is super beneficial so that you don't feel alone, and it helps give that little bit of a lifeline on those harder days. But yeah, I think being able to talk about it in any way, shape, or form does help. I know not everybody wants to go to a therapist. They don't want to talk about their feelings. They don't want to talk about those things. But I do think even if it's just having someone online that you follow and you feel comfortable every now and then just dropping a comment of sharing your experience, or you are just being able to talk to a friend, any way that you're able to just kind of move through it is going to be helpful and supportive for you. But it's listening to what feels right for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two different types of families that what we've noticed going through this, and we're on one side of it. One side is that we went through everything we went through, and our life was flipped upside down, and we decided we're going to be on the front lines, and we're going to start a foundation, and we're going to do all of this social media stuff and whatever. And then there's the other type of family that they get all the same situation, and then they do the Homer Simpson into the bushes and they disappear and you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And it's neither one is right or wrong. It's just kind of, how you feel more comfortable. But definitely, I would love for more people to use your voice and get out there and share experiences, because the reality of it is not a lot of people understand this as much as they think that they do. And the better understanding doesn't come from talking heads on CNN or Fox News or whatever. The better understanding comes from real people that are going through this on a daily basis and can explain it and can tell you word for word. And to be honest with you, some of the kids that go through this as, childhood cancer warriors, they can recite chemo drugs and all this stuff at such young ages, and they're smarter than they're given credit for. And the people that go through this, I promise you, are the ones that you truly want to talk to. They are the ones that are going to give you the best advice and support because they know what you feel. They know what you're going through. So I will leave it at that. But it was great to be able to talk to you today. Like I said, I think that you're doing an amazing job. I think that your husband is extremely lucky that he has somebody there for him that can not only be his wife the way that, that's the way it's supposed to be, but also be there for him for things that he needs help with, even though as husbands, we don't want to admit that we need any help. Just, but
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys need someone to advocate for you. I mean, and
right.
that's probably a big component. I think maybe I look at my role as not always a caretaker, but an advocate, right? And I've had to
Absolutely.
advocate for myself a lot of times when it comes even in the medical space of my own health. So I'm going to advocate all I can for my husband and other brain cancer families because we need advocates out there fighting for us because like you say, like nobody else is going to push harder or care more than somebody who is going through it and directly impacted by it.
100, absolutely 100%. That the advocating side is massive. Whether you're going through it with a child, whether you're going through it with an adult, we all need someone there to help us get through the times when we can't get the words out. And it's so crucial to this battle. It's so crucial to getting through it with a positive outcome of each day. So I will say that is probably the best thing. But again, I think you're doing great, and I appreciate that you took the time with me today to speak. And I'll continue. And again, on TikTok, on all the social media, and the best way to get this information out there, I'm telling you, is to use these avenues that are there for us that allow us to be able to share our stories, to share what to share what we're feeling. The social media in itself is a love-hate relationship, but it's there. It's a tool. So use it and look for the information that you want to know about and reach out to people. Don't be afraid to message people and ask questions, okay? Because as much as we're going through, I know I'm always willing to talk about it because the one more person that understands that's a positive move for us. So I thank you again so much for deciding to take the time and hang out with me today and talk about all of this so candidly.
Well, I appreciate it. And I thank you for allowing me to come on here and use my voice and share more of our story. It means a lot. So thank you.
Great. I will continue to do that. That's the best, like I said, it's the best avenue we have. So you just continue doing what you're doing, and I'm going to continue following and commenting and liking everything and watching what's going on. And believe me, if there's anything that we can ever do, you've met the people in my community too. So if there's anything we can ever do, please reach out because we're always there to help out. We are one family now, so you can't get rid of us.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we will see everybody else next week.